This is a recommendation algorithm that reads your mind. Well, at least people think it does. It keeps track of all your clicks, the products you look at, and how long you view them, scoring them against products with similar characteristics. And this happens repeatedly, between tens and thousands of different items at once, which over time allows the top e-commerce stores to predict exactly what you want to buy before you even realize you want it. Yet these are the current checkout processes taken from those same stores. Product catalogs have evolved from simple lists with buy buttons, to interactive selections, to using artificial intelligence to adapt to fit each customer uniquely. All the while, carts still function like this. So why hasn't online checkout been innovated yet? Welcome to the checkout crisis, which causes 70% of online shoppers to abandon their cart mid-purchase, silently costing e-commerce stores $18 billion every year. So what's being done about it? Unfortunately, every attempt to fix this problem results in even more problems, such as
buy now, pay later.
Buy now, pay later. Buy now, pay later.
Buy now, pay later.
Buy now, pay later, introduced in 2012, which let customers buy items on the spot and spread the cost over monthly payments. When this was implemented in e-commerce sites, customers began purchasing everything from jewelry to devices to high-end collectibles on credit, which companies couldn't keep up with. So the whole thing was eventually halted. Bolt, Shop, and almost every e-commerce checkout solution claims to have finally solved the 70% abandonment issue with their famously promoted one-click checkout feature. But despite their claims, cart abandonment rates haven't decreased since the year 2000. In fact, they've recently seen an uptick. So why is this? Ever since Amazon's patent for one-click checkout expired in 2017, marketers decided to repackage the term and promoted it as the definitive solution to cart abandonment. But Amazon didn't renew this patent for a reason. Back when Amazon introduced the one-click checkout technology in 1999, Amazon was only selling low-priced items like books and Britney Spears CDs. So the idea that customers could enter in their billing, shipping, and payment information just once, and then simply click a button to buy something on future visits, was a groundbreaking concept at the time. But nowadays, when you can buy almost anything online, a simple click to purchase requires a significant amount of trust from customers. Even Amazon, with its massive and loyal customer base, could not see as much benefit from one-click checkout today as it did in the past. This is even more pronounced for the mass number of online stores that don't have the same level of customer loyalty as Amazon. And unless your store is the only site in the world that sells a particular product, your time frame to encourage shoppers to stick with you over an ocean of competitors is shrinking every year. So what's really causing 70% of shoppers to abandon their carts? Well, if we break that statistic down, only a mere 26% of these abandonments stem from lengthy or complicated checkout flows. The remaining majority abandon their cart due to extra costs, website errors, or simply use the cart as a temporary storage area for products they like, with no intention on buying them. Clearly, this statistic isn't as straightforward as it seems. Ironically, the second largest reason for cart abandonment, which is responsible for 34% of all abandoned carts, is a mandatory account creation, a feature intrinsic to one-click checkout solutions. Regardless of this fact, most e-commerce stores have designed their account selection step to make it needlessly difficult for customers to locate the guest option, causing shoppers to overlook the guest path entirely in usability tests. 17% of customers consider this step to be quote-unquote broken on the typical e-commerce site they browse. At ASOS, for example, to check out as a guest, customers must first open the New to ASOS tab as the Already Registered tab is open by default. Then customers have to recognize that Continue to Checkout actually represents Guest Checkout, and decide whether to re-enter their order details as a guest or continue filling unnecessary boxes for an account they didn't even want in the first place. And if a customer does create an account, the option for Guest Checkout disappears on future site visits, forcing customers to go into their browser settings and manually clear the cache on their computer simply to access this feature again. 2/3 of all e-commerce sites don't make Guest Checkout the most prominent option, even though it's expected to be. This issue is one of 31 typical yet preventable problems found on the average e-commerce site that collectively form the checkout crisis, rather than there being one overwhelming cause. While we might not have control over the full 70% of cart abandonments, we can eliminate more than half of these abandonments that are solely due to complex checkout forms and dead ends. To do this, we've analysed Baymard Institute's 12 years of collected data of 37,000 checkout elements collected from the top e-commerce sites. The experience scores of these checkout flows were then plotted across 17 topics, meticulously placing them against a benchmark of what customers want. Using this, we'll work backwards from a typical checkout cart and transform it into the dream checkout process for customers, as if we had a magic wand to craft it perfectly. At the end, we will hopefully be left with the real solution to abandoned carts. For our dream checkout model, we'll only use the features consistently marked in green, deemed perfect by both consumers and customer experience analysts. For instance, since 14% of customers naturally look to find the guest option in the top left of the checkout during eye tracking tests, this is where we will position it. A rare gem was uncovered in the benchmark data for account creation that broke the mold with great success. Thomann, a musical instruments retailer, chose to separate their account creation from the checkout process entirely, a method that simultaneously appealed to both first-time buyers, who can purchase items as a guest straight away, and returning customers, who had the option to log in. Taking inspiration from this for the ideal checkout model, we will make guest checkout the standard choice, with a separate option available for those who want their details saved for future purchases. Basically, an optional one-click checkout. And placing it at the confirmation step, as it is on Starts, rather than the beginning like on H&M, or forced at the end like on Best Buy. One major challenge when shaping the perfect checkout flow was finding the balance between security and speed. The challenge is simple. Basic password requirements create a security risk, repelling new shoppers, while strict ones cause a 19% abandonment rate among repeat customers struggling to sign in. Despite this, 82% of e-commerce stores, including Tesco and Newegg, still impose long lists of password requirements, where purchase cycles like this still happen. Customer attempts to sign in with multiple password attempts. Customer gives up and initiates a password reset. Customer opens their email in a new tab or application. They wait for the password reset email, which can take up to 6 minutes with some stores. Customer must then reset their password, and only then can they finally return to the site, all before even initiating the purchase. Only 2% of checkouts got the balance of speed and security correctly, which are the ones that rely solely on authentication via email or phone number. So in the ideal checkout, we're taking Google Pay's two-factor authentication feature, which appeals to those customers who favoured Target's intense security, and fast enough for the rushing shoppers who favoured Dollar Shave Club's low security. However, since some customers prefer phone-based verification, while others prefer email, we will adjust ours to let shoppers choose their preferred method, instead of forcing them to use one like on Google Pay and Shop Pay. The next category is shipping and store pickup. In particular, there are 4 issues sites get wrong with shipping. Firstly, using delivery speed instead of delivery date, forcing customers to have to calculate when their package will arrive. Secondly, not showing the cut-off time as a countdown. Some sites, such as Foot Locker, only provide a cut-off time that's specific to one time zone. Others use fake cut-off times as a sales tactic, which was surprisingly popular amongst smaller e-commerce sites, even though it's actually illegal. Then there are sites like Van Cleef and Arpels that fail to provide any cut-off time at all, making it impossible for customers to know when they must place their order by. Thirdly, not presenting a store pickup option within the shipping selecting process, which is the case with most sites. And lastly, making it too difficult to compare store pickup to shipping options. On more than 2/3 of all sites, including Microsoft, there are no estimates for shipping cost, speed, or anything really, leaving customers completely in the dark when deciding whether it's worthwhile to either order their item or go pick it up. Drawing inspiration from JCPenney, Staples, and Chewy, we're just going to put all these features into the ideal checkout. We're also going to add a return policy link directly in the shipping section, rather than hiding it under some legal page. After discovering that just having this link in clear view lowers the site abandonment rate by 10%, regardless of whether customers click on it or not. In total, this lowers the cart abandonment rate in this checkout from 70% to 52%. However, 26% of customers would still abandon this checkout for being too long. So what's the ideal length of a checkout flow? On average, a checkout involves 5 steps. While there are some retailers who brag about having a one-step checkout, what they really have are 5 drop-downs stuffed onto a single page. Nobody really perceives this as one step. Home Depot and Dell classifies as a one-step checkout, for example, which asks you to fill up to 45 boxes. Over the years, the average amount of steps to complete a purchase has actually gone up, rather than declined. Back in the early 2000s, customers typically had to fill in 9 to 10 boxes during checkout. Today, it's 12. But even on some of the fastest checkout processes, such as Amazon Pay, a lot of customers are neglected for not having an address line 2 box. And when they do have one, a third of customers halt to a stop because they don't know what differs it from address line 1, causing them to start moving parts of address line 1 into address line 2. So customers are actually giving their incorrect address because of poor design. And stores that solved this problem, such as Target and Best Buy, by hiding the optional minority boxes behind buttons, would still unnecessarily split the first name and last name boxes. There's never a checkout that gets everything right. So for our ideal checkout, we're taking Amazon's minimal boxes and adding in Target's buttons for address line 2 and company name. We're also swapping out industry jargon like CVC, CID, and CSC for more user-friendly terms such as security code, inspired by the overwhelmingly preferred clarity seen on American Eagle and Gilt. This problem is so common because industry professionals struggle to unlearn the technical language when building out these checkouts. Additionally, we'll take Foot Locker's IP-based geo-targeting to alter the address terminology based on where you are in the world when you're buying something. And since customers tend to look at the box before its label, we'll put Google Pay's placeholders inside the boxes. The flow can also be improved with how Sports Direct mimic the sequence seen on physical credit cards, which customers are more familiar with, where they can type in the expiry date as it is on their card, rather than scrolling through drop-downs like on Stripe's default checkout model. This also prevents a common error seen in tests, where customers, out of habit, mistakenly enter their card number into the card holder's name box. Since it's the only thing nobody can remember by heart, it's also the only thing nobody wants to enter twice. Even though there is no other checkout that falls below 7 boxes, we did find a trick to break that record, which, if done right, can make our ideal checkout even faster. Since most customers must enter their full name twice for shipping and then again in the card section, we can autofill the cardholder name box in a way that's easy to be changed if necessary. This slight adjustment makes it the only checkout in the world that only requires 6 boxes to be filled in by the majority of shoppers. While that sounds great, there's still room for improvement. Half of all e-commerce sites, including Tag Heuer, requires customers to only find out that the card details are incorrect after it goes through and fails. When 1 in every 3 customers end up with at least one typo in the card details section, this is a big issue. For our ideal checkout, we will use an old maths algorithm from 1954 called Luhn validation, which was originally used by bank clerks to swiftly match written account numbers against actual accounts. This way, the checkout can quickly spot incorrect card numbers before customers proceed with their purchase. This also lets the checkout pinpoint the location of an error instantly, with adaptive error messages that can colloquially explain exactly what the customer needs to correct. Unlike other e-commerce sites like GameStop and Everlane that vaguely indicate that there's an error somewhere without specifics, which sometimes clears out the previously entered information, like on Victoria's Secret for some reason, forcing customers to start the process from scratch again. And at last, we'll add a back button. If you want to use this customer-friendly checkout on your e-commerce store, there's a link to it below. Even though this checkout should reduce the abandonment from 70% to somewhere between 40 and 35%, there is still a lot more to a customer journey that contributes to possible cart abandonments than a store's checkout. As Professor Robert Soroka of McGill University argues, most sales are won and lost well before the checkout stage.